with over 63 civil society organizations set up on the premise of different mandates in Nigeria today. CSOs have established themselves as a third sector in our society, advocating for good governance, expressing public opinions of Nigerians to the government, and continuously holding them accountable.
Civil society organizations are a group of persons who are organized in a formal way. However, for me, I think that the entire non-governmental space is referred to as a civil society. But when it comes to an organization, it includes any group of persons who come together for a particular cause. And it doesn't necessarily mean they have to be formal. They operate informally, unlike NGOs that possess a lot of technical expertise in the cause for which they work, and they are more professional.
There's a lot of myth or misconception about civil society organization in general. When it's an organization, it means there are certain structure, certain registration, certain benchmark for operation. But there is what we call the civil society. The civil society including organization not formally registered. So civil society organization is a true third tier of the state architecture. For example, you have the state, which is the government. You have the non-profit. You have the profit, which is the private sector. Then you have the non-profit, which is more of the civil society, including the church, including the mosque, including all of these Osasu and all of that, then including the non-governmental organization. So the non-governmental organization is that organ of the civil society organization that plays specific role of organizing, advocacy, and all of that.
And they work across different thematic areas, from democracy and good governance to health, to agriculture, to human rights, even down to education and several others, including security sector.
We have a system in Africa where the government in power tend to harness with other arms of government that are supposed to check each other. So without, they're cheating on the masses. So that's where civil society organization comes in. They ensure that they checkmate the government, they ensure they checkmate the excesses of government, put government on check, they ensure that they speak for the voiceless.
Today in Nigeria, CSOs represent a wide range of interests and ties, not just focusing on politics but on human rights movement, gender-related issues, economic rights, etc. Little wonder CSOs are equally called NGOs. Be that as it may, there is a slight difference.
NGOs we have what we refer to as international NGOs, for example. That cannot be referred to CSOs. CSOs are limited to the particular society in which they operate. For example, in Nigeria, we have what we call the Nigerian Civil Society. Now, when it comes to organization, it has to do with non-governmental people, ordinary people, citizens coming together for a particular cause. That is civil society organization. But in terms of NGO, the non-governmental organizations, whether international or national or local, they operate with some measure of professional and formal registration, and they operate with a definite cause. And in recent times, anyway, the distinction has been so blurred that you can hardly find any. So the words are used interchangeably to describe anything that is non-governmental, that is civil society, that is civil society driven, and that is geared towards a particular cause for the purpose of development and to drive a particular society organization within the United Nations system, and how it would
to differentiate between civil society organization and NGO, because the NGO get that in quote authority from the civil society organization because it's formed from the civil society as it were. So the civil society are the citizens. So the organization is whatever organization that organizes the citizens. And the NGO play that strategic role because you have registration from the CAC on that CAMA, and you follow certain rule with the EFCC, the SCRUMO and all of that. That makes you the organization within the civil society.
Recall that much earlier in the national life, we do have voluntary organizations, which also form part of civil society organizations, by the way. Voluntary organizations like Boy Scouts, Boys Brigade, Red Cross, and all of that. Those are voluntary organizations. but they are not stricto sensu what we classify as NGO that are working like what we call Campaign for Democracy, like Clean Foundation working with security, with Nigerian police. There are different models of civil society organizations. Even town unions. Town unions are civil society organizations in a wider sense, even though they do not acquire or get certificated by government. But all NGOs are part of civil society, but not all civil societies are NGOs.
When mobilized, civil society has the power to influence the actions of elected policymakers and businesses. But the operation of civil society, what it is and what it does, is evolving. In response to both technological development and more nuanced changes in societies. Therefore, it is imperative to evaluate the impact these organizations have had over the years.
The basic impact that civil society organizations make is in the area of public enlightenment, and that is achieved through the means of advocacy, either social advocacy or other forms of advocacy, using the courts or using the mass media generally.
There's a lot. Part of the work of civil society organization is to put government in check by pushing government, by advising government, by criticizing government, by telling government, wow, what you're doing is very good, but it's not achieving the result that you aim to achieve, by monitoring government operation. We don't fight government. We work collaboratively. We work together. But when government think that we are advising or critiquing, they tend to look at it as a fight. It's not a fight.
When the lawyers, the MBAs and possibly the lawyers and other people that could have speak for the masses are not there to speak for them, the CSO comes in. So most of the protests we had, the issue of social media that was almost, they almost passed through. If it wasn't the last protest we did, they kept us in the sun that day for more than 4 hours. But we insisted, we ensured that we have to meet with the leadership of National Assembly just to ensure that bill, they don't pass through. Series of other protests we've done to create awareness in the society. So that alone have actually helped, and we've made so much impact.
You cannot use the action of very minute few to discredit the great work that many other civil society organizations are doing. You possibly are aware that Action Against Hunger, some of their staffs were abducted by Boko Haram just a couple of days back. Some of those abducted were murdered because of failure in negotiation with government. And these are people providing humanitarian services. So some of us have been in harm's way, even trying to support and bring development to our society.
Tasked with the goal of fulfilling important duties of checks and balances in democracies, facilitating better awareness and a more informed citizenry who make better voting choices, participate in politics, and hold government more accountable. These individuals who set up these societies, whether formal or informal, are expected to run them independently. But it would be fallacy not to acknowledge the challenges that sometimes hinder their effectiveness.
Funding become a major challenge. If you wanted to provide 500,000, for example, bags of rice, and you can't buy them, and there are people in need of them, then there will be gap. The people will go hungry. And that's what leads to sometimes the report we continue to receive from the Northeast, where there's allegation of sex for food. People now, in an attempt to eat, they offer them their body. So if they get food from non-profit organization, they wouldn't do that. So you see, the inability to get funding to meet those food gap is resulting in another dimension of development challenge.
The other challenge that is very apparent is that of capacity, lack of capacity. Many people who start civil society organizations do not understand the principles of operating a civil society organization, especially within the United Nations system, and how it works basically as a supportive group to government in ensuring that government delivers to the people what it ought to be. Now, apart from Section 22 of the Constitution, which demands the press to hold the government accountable, what the civil society community is better able, is better in a position to actually demand of government in a prescriptive manner to carry out either the programs by which it has enunciated, or particularly with laws that are in place in Nigeria. So, particularly with regards to the budget, for example, CSOs are very, very instrumental in ensuring that the government should ensure that it, fulfills, it implements the budget to the fulfillment and to the, benefit of Nigerians. But that is not the case. So, apart from the funding-related issues, lack of capacity, it's a bigger problem too. It's a big problem too.
Intimidation from the government, oppression, victimization is there. Tomorrow, we're always careful in terms of, exposing our identity. That's why, if you notice, most times people call me, I'm always extra careful because you're not even safe. As an activist, the government is scared. They are scared that you are exposing them. The government don't want you to tell the masses the truth. The government don't want you to reveal their secrets. There are so many secrets in my position, in my disposition, that I can't just say out. You understand? Because if I say it today, it will cause problem. You understand? So most times we keep some of those things. So because of that, the government is threatening our life. Your life is not safe. Your life is at risk. So you're just trying your best to ensure that you're prayerful, because your life is in the hands of God. So that's why we're doing at all is we're doing well. So we try that we live a smooth life. We ensure that we live a transparent life. We ensure that we live a pure life so that nothing will hurt you. So we face issue of intimidation. We face issue of oppression. We face issue of victimization. We face financial crisis. So many things.
The misconception, they bully people. People send, whether it's government or state agent, tend to send people to bully civil society organization from speaking truth to power. Because one of the reasons we exist is to be able to speak truth to power and to commit those in authority to do the right thing.
While we acknowledge their efforts and their challenges, an unflattering word that has stuck with CSOs in recent times is corruption. Members have often been accused of being corrupt and favoring sources of their funding rather than their mandate.
Yes, out of every 12 there will be a Judas. We cannot say all of us working in the area of civil society organizations are saints. In fact, some of us are established by politically exposed persons for certain motive, for certain, ulterior motives.
Now, there's no doubt about the fact that there's a lot of corruption in the NGO and CSO sector. And it's understandable because it has to do with a lot of money and personal interest in terms of those who set them up and for whatever reason. Now, one simple question that you ask for you to test the true motive of those who operate these CSOs is that without the funds, would they still say the things they say? Would they still continue to do the things they do? So funding, it's principally the motive for a lot of CSO organizations in Nigeria, and that makes the motive skewed. That makes it very ignoble. Rather, the underlying the motive, underlying the basis of civil society organization is supposed to be an altruistic mindset, a charitable outlook towards life. That is something that has to do with, what we refer to as philanthropy. That should be what drives NGO. Something that is sacrificial. But when it now becomes different, when people scramble for funds as if their lives depend on it, or they think that, make enemies, go to fight and lie and falsify papers and do all sorts of things to get money, and ultimately do not use the money for what they get, or use the money in such a manner that it becomes more like, playing to the gallery, so that at least let's do things so that people will think that those who give us money would just be satisfied that, some money came in. they utilized the money. Whereas without the true intention of directly affecting the situation that is, bedeviling Nigerians, or improving the condition or that for which particularly the social condition for which advocacy monies have been collected, that becomes a real problem. So corruption has really, really affected the work of civil societies in Nigeria.
Yeah, maybe in the area of corruption, I concede There are some NGOs are not very transparent. We know the phenomenon of doctoring the book, the phenomenon of creative accounting. It does happen. I will not lie. I've been in this sector for more than 20 years, so I know what I'm talking about. There is what is called creative accounting. So you want your balance sheet to be okay because you need to survive. Don't forget, the initial motive of civil society organizations is not to have it as a career. It's for people to have their regular jobs and do this as like you join Boy Scouts, Girls Brigade, or Red Cross. People who are involved, who are not admin staff, they have their regular jobs. Some of them are lawyers, they are engineers, they are architects, but they belong to this Boy Scout, they belong to this Girls Guide, they belong to this Red Cross. But now NGO has become a career.
Yeah, I will not deny that fact. That's the more reason why Ayla said that most times we could have meetings of CSO but some people who cannot stay without food. The wise saying said, man shall not live by bread alone. But the truth is this, there are many people that cannot live by bread. They must eat bread. You understand? So if you notice few CSOs, most times they are not too rich because it's not the money that drives them, but purpose fulfillment is what drives most of us. We have few of our members that have broken out of the CSO wings. They're going to join political organizations, affiliate with political parties just to have financial freedom. You understand? But that's where the issue of corruption comes in. Most times, you have meetings, the government will call some certain people, okay, take this, take that. At the end of the day, you have the bite, and also few of us are struggling to ensure that we liberate the country. Now, if you look at other countries of the world, look at Egypt, look at Iraq, look at even UK, Turkey, and so many others. Civil society organization triggers a little spark, and all the whole country backs them up.
Civil society organization is a phrase that is much mentioned about in media and by politicians. If you were to stop and ask a casual passerby what is meant by civil society, it is unlikely many people could give an in-depth explanation. This is exactly what we need to find out if Nigerians understand the concept of civil society organizations.
Civil society organizations, CSOs, to my own understanding, is a private body that protect the will and the interest of the citizen.
I know them as a group established for the purpose of fighting certain human rights challenges that the society and the population is facing.
I will stay with my country, Nigeria. Effectively, yes, it is. It's been very effective. At least we have a lot of organizations, both government and private organizations, that are doing well in the civil society, yes.
In this present government, I feel the civil societies have been a little bit asleep. If I compare their era during the days of Babangida era, Abacha era, till down to Obasanjo and the last government, Goodluck Jonathan, the civil societies of Nigeria have been very active. But in this present dispensation, I think a lot of them have not really been active, so to say.
These civil society organizations are supposed to be playing a role more even than the NGOs. But in recent time, the reverse is the case. They are not really doing what they are supposed to because the right of people are being tampered with. We need civil society organization in this country to protect the interests of our people. A lot of people are suffering outside there. A lot of people don't even know their right.
We need civil society in Nigeria as a country, but if only they can face what is their specific assignment. Most of the time, the civil society, like I said earlier, have failed in their duties.
I think the civil society organizations, to some extent, to my understanding, have not been very proactive enough because of the excessive restrictions on their activities by government, so to speak. You understand? So to some extent, that has curtailed, their activities to some extent. So if government can give them that space.
To an extent, they are trying their best. At least it was because of the civil society agitation of the Niger Delta people that brought about the amnesty program during the government of late President Yaradua. And I want to also believe that it is because of the activities of OPC, Odua People's Congress, that brought about certain changes and positive things in the southern part of the country. If there is no civil society organization like that, many of the things they are fighting for, they won't have any opportunity or platform through which they can put it through to the government to let them know the problem they are facing and how the government can come to their aid. So I think generally that the civil society representing different parts of the country, they are trying their best, but they can still do more.
Nigeria has several civil society organizations which have a central role to play as watchdogs for government institutions. However, they can only function where freedom of speech and right to free assembly are guaranteed in the absence of corruption and personal interest. We as a country need free and active civil societies to thrive, as they are the indicator of a healthy participatory democracy.
Generally, I still believe that the civil society organizations in Nigeria hold a lot of hope in terms of improving our kind of governance here. There is a lot of disappointment with regards to the dividends of democracy and what good governance can offer to Nigerians. But if CSOs carry on, especially in the area of research and finding out the proper way things should go in terms of governance, and then taking active steps in educating both the populace and those who operate government, then there will be truly an improvement in the state of affairs in Nigeria.
Government should take civil society organization, non-profit organization, as partners, as collaborators, not as enemy. Where we engage, let's engage with the sincerity of purpose. The same way you bring in private sector to the table, to the economic team, bring in civil society with that economic platform to engage from the people's side. We know private sector always thinking about profit making. Is a profit making organization. NGOs are not profit making organization. We all need to work together. The state is there to be able to make everything work. So when three of us stick together, the government, the private sector, the non-profit sector, we are able to work together for the good of the people. Because there are things we know, government don't know, and private sector don't know. There are things they know, civil society organizations don't know. But when we come together on the same table and collaborate, again, it's collaboration. It is not a fight.
We should please believe in the CSO cause, believe in Nigeria Human Rights Commission, and believe in us. Whenever we call for protest nationwide comes out, there's a 40 days limit of counting for prisoners for caution to be released. If we call for that protest, we want every Nigerian to come out so that we protest against the government. We are tired of oppression, we're tired of intimidation, we're tired of victimization. We believe in one Nigeria, we believe in the unity of this country.
We need to have our integrity intact. In all that we do, integrity comes first. Attitude is everything. We must be of the right attitude, and government must also see civil society organizations partner in progress. All these threats, breathing down the neck of civil society, coming up with very draconian regulations and all of that is quite unnecessary. These are voluntary organizations. They are not drawing government funds. And of course, the donor community already have very stringent conditions under which they give grants. So government should not overburden and now there is even a lot of issues around taxation of even civil society organizations. Government needs to look into this. And my last charge is government itself should set up a foundation to support civil society organizations so that we can be proper partner in progress.